Yes, probably will get it.
But this process we are talking about is what we call the lateralization. Now, it all takes place in the left hemisphere, the left part of the brain. So, this input that is being received, which part does which linguistic job in terms of language conception and articulation? Did you get what I'm talking about? So, under the lateralization, we have something we call the localization. So, if the accurate, let me start with the Wernicke's area. If it is the job of the Wernicke's area to conceive whatever is being said by a co-interlocutor, then the accurate, the Wernicke's area will give us the meaning or help you understand whatever that is being said. After that, it is the job of the accurate fasciculus to transfer that meaning to another part of the brain, which is called the Broca's area. So talking about the localization, it is the job of that accurate fasciculus to act as a vehicle or a transporter through which that input will be sent to the Broca's area. And then Broca's area also has its localized function, which is after the language has been, after the input has been understood, processed, it is its job to also tell the motor cortex that this is what I want to produce. This person said this, I've understood it. I want to say this. And then it works hand in hand with the motor cortex for articulation to be done.
When we are speaking, you see, the first processes I actually spoke about, that is for when you want to speak, when you want to utter certain words, right? But when you are reading a word, right, you are reading a written word, it takes a different style, it takes a different process. So we have the part of the brain that is responsible for sight, right? That is the occipital lobe, right? That is responsible for vision, whatever. There is the parietal lobe, there is the frontal lobe. So the brain is divided into various parts, right? Now, what happens is, in the occipital lobe, there is a part called the visual cortex. Now, what happens there is, the visual cortex will transmit whatever you're reading. So yes, I'm seeing activated studio line here on my paper here. My visual cortex will see it, transmit a converted form of whatever has been written here, like these symbols, directly to my angular gyrus. Now, it sounds complex because the words are, something, but think of it as a place where, information can be associated to the meaning, right? So the angular gyrus will also do basically the selective picking, relating the symbols that have been seen here to a word that looks like what the Wernicke's area has in the mental lexicon, right? And when that happens, the Wernicke's area will make available the meaning of the symbol that has been sent to that part of the brain. So yes, when you are speaking, it uses a different process because we are dealing with articulation, right? When you are reading, you use a different process because now you are using your eyes to make sense of what you are seeing. And when you are listening, it uses a different process too. But let me explain this terminology, the lateralization and all that thing we're talking about. So basically, in simple terms, what we are trying to say is the brain has two hemispheres, has two parts, the left and the right hemisphere. Now, when the left hemisphere performs its job, its function, we are saying there has been lateralization. So we are saying the left hemisphere is responsible for language processing and whatever. If it does the job perfectly, like Derek was saying, there is lateralization. Similarly, we are saying the right hemisphere is responsible for maybe music acquisition and all those things. And if that job is executed perfectly, then there is lateralization. But then there is a flip side. There is this assertion that the brain works in a mysterious way where the left hemisphere controls the right part of the body and the right hemisphere controls the left part of the body. That is also termed as contra-lateralization. So lateralization means in relation to, right? Contra is directly the opposite. So there is this, example that we actually use when we are learning this course. They'll say, you see, when you are making a phone call, usually when you get a phone call, you are quick to take the phone and put it at your right ear. Automatically it happens before maybe you want to bring it to your left or something like that. The reason is simple. Language is processed in the left hemisphere, right? So when you put your phone at your right ear, the journey from the right ear to the left hemisphere is actually short, very quick, as compared to putting the phone on your left ear. Now what happens when you put the phone on the left ear is, of course, you will hear what the person is saying, but then the auditory stimuli would have to travel to the right hemisphere, and when it gets there, it cannot be interpreted. So then it will use another medium to travel from the right hemisphere to the left hemisphere before meaning can be made, or you can hear exactly what the person is saying. And see, there is a link between the left and the right hemisphere, and the link between this hemisphere is the corpus callosum. It's a thin line, right? Without that thing, if you put your phone at the left side and that thing is not there, you will never hear what the person is saying. So you see someone is deaf in the left ear. You get it?
Yeah.
That's how it works. So yeah, that was just to explain the lateralization process to not confuse our, our listeners. Yeah.
Okay. So are there differences in how the brain processes the first and second language?
Yes, of course, there are. But one thing is, you see, there is something we call a critical period. Most of the times, first languages are being applied within that period. The period from, let's say, right from birth to puberty. There is that, let me say, research has delved much into that part. That within this period, language acquisition is very easy and quick. One is able to acquire a native, like I said, between language at all based on the universal grammar anybody has. So if an infant is being exposed to the language at an early age, he or she acquires a father tongue. That is the L1. Yeah. So that being put aside, the L2 is acquired after the L1. That does not mean the person has to go to, has to start from the base, go through all the processes to attain the language again.
Yeah.
What happens now is that the person has already acquired a language, and he or she knows what goes on into acquiring a lexicon in any new language at all. So what a person will do right now is that if he or she is being exposed to a second language, the person adapts to it, makes correction, and then pick the right pronunciation of that lexicon. It's not that I'm going to start again learning this language like maybe starting pronouncing monosyllabic words to bisyllabic, queen, and easy. So you, for instance, when you started acquiring your local language, your mother tongue language, you were not even aware you are acquiring any language. You just came up speaking the language as if it was something like a miracle. But you go to school with English being introduced, you begin to fumble because you are not going through those bases anymore. At this time, what you do is to adapt to whatever the rules of the language says you should go through before you acquire the language. So the difference is this: though acquisition occurs in two, but you don't go through all the processes that you have to go through in acquiring the L1 before you acquire the L2.
Yeah. So definitely L1 is the easiest because you grew up with it, right? Yeah. But the L2 is always some way. So like Derek said, I'm just going to add something small. So you see, when you're a child and you're learning language, it's more of imitation and connection, trying to imitate what people say around him and trying to make a connection between what you see and what you think they are, right? So, yeah, you have interactions with people around, and you hear people saying, manibis, as you're growing up, and you don't know what manibis is, whether it's a human being or something like that. Then you try to make sense of that manibis, right? You get a little deeper into, the language world, and you realize, oh, actually, manibis is not just English. It's actually like Pidgin, right? And what they are trying to say is my thing, in a different way. Then you get used to it. Now, when that happens, when you're trying to learn a different language, you don't go through the process of making sense of everything literally, right? The first thing you do is to make sense of the rules of the new language you want to learn. But we always make the mistake of, speaking the new language in a way to conform to the L1 we speak. So you see, when you come to school, like Derek was saying, they speak English, all this stuff. But when you're at home, you're speaking Fanti or something like that. You get to school and you want to say, you want to direct translate all the words because you want it to fit your rules, right?
Yeah.
But then it takes time for you to understand that every language has its own rules, right? So the first language acquisition and the second language acquisition period are two different periods, even though it's all acquisition. But one is too fundamental, and the other is like, we've gotten there. We just want to know the rules so that we can apply.
Outlined the specific roles played by the parts of the brain in the left hemisphere. Mind you, the left hemisphere is the part of the brain which is in charge of language processing.
Yeah.
So, any damage to any of the four parts we talked about can result in what we call aphasia.
All right, just to add a quick one. So with this Wernicke's problem, right? The funny thing is, people don't even realize they are not making sense when they are talking. Yeah, so they have fluent but meaningless speech, right? And then that disease is actually called anosognosia, right? So when you're talking, but none of what you're saying is actually making complete sense. It's anosognosia. But I think for the sake of time, we are not going to be able to go into all the, disturbances, regulation of the brain. But for our listeners, they can actually do a little bit of research when it comes to these diseases. It's funny, people are actually having them, but they don't know their diseases, right? So, yeah, people are suffering from conduction aphasia, people are suffering from alexia, dyslexia, agraphia, and all those things. People find it difficult to write. Yeah, people find it difficult to write, people find it difficult to read. All these things are, problems that are occurring in the brain. Yeah, so that is basically where we can get to today. Maybe another time we can go into details.
Yeah. It's been an exciting time with you guys. So at least we have a fair knowledge of how the brain is connected to the brain.
You mean how
language is connected to
we have two brains there,
That's not facial.
Oh, yeah.
So I would like to say a very big thank you to the Linguistic Students Association by the Applied Linguistics and Radio Windy Bay for giving us this wonderful opportunity to host Time with the Linguist. And also to our coach and producer, I say a very big thank you. And to our viewers and listeners as well, thank you.
And please, we also have our social media handles: Facebook, Linguistic Students Association UW, Instagram, Linksa UW, YouTube, Linksa TV. Go to follow us on all our social media platforms. Until then, catch you same time next week. Stay curious and keep learning. I'm Ya and
Guilty.
bye.